Good morning, Church 180. We're so glad you joined us online. Why don't you stand up, shake it around. I want you to just feel comfortable in worship, and let's sing these songs of worship and praise to our God.
Jesus lives in me, for I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light.
No, I won't boast, but in the cross that saved my soul. All else is lost. The grip of fear has no hold on me. So where, oh death, where is your sting? No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. And oh, all of this for your glory. 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 No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light. And oh, all of this for your glory. And oh, all of this for your glory. And oh, all of this for your glory. And oh, all of this for your glory.
We're going to sing a new song. It's called Graves in the Garden. This has a great message about whatever you're going through in life, that God can turn the worst of things and worst of situations into just beautiful blossoming flowers.
And I searched the world, it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. You came along, put me back together. And every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. 'Cause I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. Yeah. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
Good morning, Church 180, and welcome to this week's Memorial Service Weekend. Memorial Service Weekend. Memorial Weekend Service. Good morning, Church 180, and welcome to this weekend's Memorial Service. Hey, first off, we just want to thank you, all the families out there that have family members in the past that have served our country. Let's use this time right now to remember the sacrifices that they made, that you have made, and just kind of reflect on that as we go forward and celebrate this weekend. A big thank you to all the families out there, again, for their sacrifice. Hey, we only exist because of the generosity of many of you tuning in this morning, and everything we're able to do to turn people toward hope in Jesus is because of your generosity. You can give online or set up a recurring financial gift at church180sd.com/give. There you can also find our address to mail a check. We would love for you to download the Church 180 app. The link should be in the chat by now. There is a lot on there, including the Connect card. We ask that every person every week fills out a Connect card with just some of the appropriate details. This is a great way to present prayer requests. Also, the app is a great way to connect with all things Church 180, including our upcoming virtual gatherings, message notes for today, and another way to give, or make prayer requests more public through the prayer wall. Next week, we'll be starting a brand new series called Making the Most of COVID-19. You won't want to miss these special messages for this time. Today, we're going to open up our Zoom room right after service for quick courtyard hangouts, kind of like we do at Vista Del Mar following regular service. And just after that, at 11:15, we'll be hosting 180 Kids for our kids' worship experience. Go ahead and get your Bibles, your note sheets, and pens, and check out this video.
Welcome to week 6 of Sheltered at Home. And as I was looking at our story for this week, I realized that we actually needed to cover the backstory before we cover the story. So let me give you a little bit of that real quick. It's Mark chapter 7, and Jesus has caused quite a bit of splash with his ministry. And people are getting healed, and people are coming in crowds, and religious leaders are scoffing, and they're upset from all over Galilee, to the point where some of the religious leaders come down, make the several-day journey from Jerusalem. And they're there to catch Jesus in something, trip him up, to condemn him ultimately. And so one of the first things they observe is that some of Jesus' followers have eaten some food without observing the traditional hand washing of the Jews. And so they call Jesus, over, and they say, "Hey, Jesus, why do your disciples, why do they eat with unclean hands? Why don't they observe the traditions that we've laid out as far as, eating with clean hands?" And Jesus looks at him and he said, "Hey, you have a fine way of setting aside the laws of God to follow the human traditions." And Jesus is like, "Well, hey, let me tell you something actually real quick. Let me you know that thing called Corban?" And you're like, "Well, what's Corban?" Corban is a term that they would use to devote things to God. And he said, "You know that thing called Corban where you devote all of your wealth to God, so that whenever your moms and dads and your family's in need, and they need, like stuff from you, you're like, well, sorry, that like what I have is devoted to God." Do that again real quick. You know that thing called Corban, or you know how your moms and your dads, they're just in need, and you're like, well, sorry guys, my wealth is devoted to God. And Jesus is like, but Moses laid out the commands that you're to look after your mother and father, and in doing that, you're elevating the traditions that you have over the laws of God, and you're making them void. And you do that with so many different things. You see, it's this thing called legalism that they're following. And legalism is just this thing whenever we elevate human traditions and put them on level with God's law. And see, we still do this today, where we take, maybe in some places in the country, it's what we wear, it's what we dress, it's what we eat, what we drink, and some of the things that we do and the behaviors that we have that maybe aren't God's law, but are some of the traditions of the church. And we say, no, you can't do that. And while it may be a good idea to not do that, it's not on level with God's law. And so Jesus says, you do that. You have this thing called legalism, and you do that with a bunch of different things. And so then they continue this discussion about, okay, well, what is it that makes a person unclean or clean? Like, what is it, okay? And Jesus goes on to explain to them, hey, it's not about the hands that you eat with. It's not about the food that you eat. And he's going right after some of their kosher, laws at the time. It's not about the food that you eat. It's not about the hands, but it's about the condition of your heart. And Jesus goes on to give this famous line where he said, hey, it's from within your heart that all this plurality of evil comes out. He's like, man, the things that you eat, it just goes into your organs and comes out of your body, and that's fine. But what makes a person unclean is what comes out of them and what comes out of their heart. And in order to understand our story this morning for Sheltered at Home Week 6, we got to get the backstory. So check out this video.
Hi, it's Tom and Carol Lazinski.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
I'm Veronica.
I'm Marvin.
The hardest part of being sheltered in place for us was being separated from some of our children and grandchildren. And
yeah, that, and then for me, it's just be able to run and do stuff when I want to, you know, run down to Home Depot and do a project or something. That it's just, you got to stop and think before you do anything like that.
I don't have a social life right now. A lot of the activities that I used to do, I've missed out on. Being team manager for my son's soccer team, there's no games on the weekends, no practices. I've missed out on a graduation event for my oldest son from SDSU. I've missed out on being with friends and family, different events that we would normally get together for. I don't get to go to church. Doing church online is great, but I would rather be the type of person that gets to physically go and see everybody.
Going to places that I usually went without this quarantine holding us back, like to the gym or to the beach or wherever I needed to go or wherever I went to. Just
not being able to go to the gym, not being able to focus on my career goals as hard as I wanted to, which involves the gym.
the positive things we found is finding times together to just enjoy things like going on walks and sunsets, appreciating the small things more.
Yeah, that's more time together. I think that's the key.
I spend more time with my family. We sit, watch movies. We have family dinners together, which we haven't done in a long time because of everybody's schedules. We have conversations that we probably normally would never have. Some of them make us laugh. My boys have made me hysterical, rolling on the floor, literally laughing and crying so much. And it's just brought us a lot closer together.
Praying a lot for me, that's been a positive for me. Me praying, keeping my faith strong in God.
I feel like it definitely brought us closer. Like, this is like my best friend now.
Yeah, this quarantine has changed our relationship to where kind of we butt heads all the time, but it's not.
But it's like love.
Yeah.
And I definitely have been brought closer to God, and I would definitely say He helped me with that. And Tony as well. Thank you. And self-discipline, like trying to, that would be a positive. Like, I'm learning to tell myself no when it's like right in front of me.
What we're learning is more patience, and that we need more patience.
Yeah.
And I need to confront and deal with one-on-one with myself. That's something that's been brought to my attention.
I definitely use work and the gym and not being at home as a way to run away from everything that's going on in my head. So now I'm like kind of forced to face everything that's going on inside my head.
We would appreciate prayers to help us with wisdom, and they're being teachers for our 2 granddaughters that live with us. We're not teachers we're not trained that way, so we could use some wisdom.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's been 50 years since I've done algebra, and trying to teach that when I don't even remember it, it makes it difficult.
Pray that I stop eating so much food.
Keep my faith strong, for sure. Yes. Yes. Pray to keep our faith strong with God. I think that's it.
All right. Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. It's supposed to be fun.
Well, hey, welcome to week 6 of Sheltered at Home. what we've said throughout this entire series is that the home was a significant part of the ministry of Jesus, and Mark goes out of his way to point this out. But what we've also said is the home was, is, and will be a significant part of your life. And so today we're going to wrap this series up. And I'm excited about today. I'm also excited about next week as we start talking about making the most of your COVID-19 experience. But I'm excited about the story that we're going to look at today. So let's jump into it and remember the backstory that we had as we look at verse 24, which says this: Jesus left that place. He left the backstory. And he went to the vicinity of Tyre, and he entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence a secret. And the truth is this is a weird place for a Jewish man to go. And it's like, well, what is he doing here? And I think the thing that we can kind of see from the previous chapters and stories leading up to this point is that Jesus is exhausted, and he wants to get away from the crowds. And he wants to get away, and he goes into a house, as Mark mentions, that he goes into a house. And he's probably just trying to knock off for a few days and just get some rest and recover from the arguments that he's had, the miracles that he's done, the crowds that want so much out of him. He's probably exhausted. Here he's going to be unsuccessful, as we could see. But honestly, there's probably a lot of times that he was successful. They just weren't worth writing about. He's exhausted and he needs to get away and get some rest. I can think about, for me, there's been plenty of times that I've been exhausted and just needed some rest in life. But there was this one particular time that stands out to me, and it's probably because of how much I slept during this time. But I was in this season where I was carrying a full university load. I was working a little bit more than I was used to at our part-time youth ministry that I was working at the time because of some extenuating circumstances. And lo and behold, at that time, I met Kelsey and we started dating, and she was a short 4-hour drive away. And so if I wasn't in the car, I was spending time with Kelsey or working on youth ministry stuff or working on college stuff, and it was go, 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 go. And I remember it was this afternoon that I just was done. And I got to the town where we did youth ministry, and then I remember getting to the house with which I stayed and walking upstairs to the bedroom, collapsing on the bed and sleeping from mid-afternoon till sometime the next morning for a long time because I was exhausted. And my point so far is that if you have found yourself at a place of needing some rest, you're in good company with Jesus. Probably even more so if you find yourself at a place of needing rest unsuccessfully, you're in better company with Jesus. Because one of the things that we see, I just want to run through this story and talk about some of the lessons that we can learn from Jesus. And we see this all throughout the book of Mark. And I would encourage you to read through the book of Mark and to underline every time you see Jesus withdraw and go and get some rest. But we're going to talk about the lessons from Jesus. And the first thing that just kind of stands out to me right here from this first verse is we can learn the lesson from Jesus to learn to live from a place of rest. To learn to live from a place of rest. There's this verse that we covered a few weeks back. It was actually our first week of moving everything online, and you can go back and you can listen to that on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, or a website or our app. But Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, he said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And what I want to say this morning is that in coming to Jesus, he offers us rest in a way that a nap can't. He offers us rest in a way that getting a good night's sleep can't do. A vacation doesn't stack up to the rest that Jesus offers. A little umbrella drink by the pool or a Corona by the beach doesn't quite cut it. A massage chair or getting a massage or a mani-pedi or however you find rest doesn't cut the rest that Jesus offers, because the rest that Jesus offers is peace. It's peace with yourself that produces a joy, a profound, deep joy that just doesn't make sense to the rest of the world. And so the first lesson we learn is to live from a place of rest. And to keep going and into our story, verse 25 and 6 say this. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, we're going to learn her story in a minute. As soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia, and she begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. Here we go, another story, another time that somebody comes to Jesus in his finding hope, that falls at his feet and begs him. There's a few things going on here that I want to kind of catch us up with. For one, she's probably, because of the region and because it's close to the border, she probably would have known many of the Jewish traditions and customs and beliefs, and she probably would have known that she had no business approaching a Jewish rabbi. She just didn't have the credentials or the qualifications to approach and beg, let alone just open her mouth and talk. And here she is, as we learn from the parallel account in Matthew chapter 15. Matthew gives us his version of the story, and he adds a few details. Mark's usually blunt and right to the point, but Matthew chapter 15 lets us know that she's been around for a little while, and she's been begging and crying out. And the disciples are like, Jesus, we got to get rid of her. And they actually are trying, like, shoo her away, like, shoo fly, get out of here. And they're like, Jesus, can't you just give her what she wants and get her out of here, away from us? But she's got this dogged persistence, and she's coming after Jesus, and she's like, Jesus, you've got to heal my little girl. You have to get this unclean spirit out of her. And so she's reached this kind of freakish point of concern, according to the scriptures. And I think those of us who are parents out there, we know why, because Mama Bear got woken up. I know that for Kelsey's usually a pretty reserved person, but she would do anything, climb any mountain, and solve any problem, and beat down any door if any of our kids are in trouble. Mama Bear got woken up, and she is freaking out, breaking customs, coming after Jesus with this dogged persistence. Jesus, you gotta do something about my little girl. And so my question also too is, like, where did she get this dogged I mean, I know that Mama Bear got woken up, but where did she learn to put this hope in Jesus? Like, what stories did she hear? What stories crossed this border into this region where she's at that she would hear and everything? So verse 27 says this. Jesus replies back to her, and he says, First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Ouch. And I think in order for us to understand this phrase, we're going to have to get a little bit of history. So let me give you a little bit of the history. God chose a man named Abraham to birth a nation, his people. And that's what we see throughout the book of Genesis, that God used this man to start a nation through which this nation would be his mouthpiece to the world, with which he would show the entire world how great he is through this nation. And so God chose Abraham to do this. And then we see that through a famine, this nation ends up in Egypt to get some food. And as a result of being in Egypt for a while, they fall into slavery with the Egyptians, and they continue to grow in Egypt for hundreds of years, to the point to where out of one man and one woman, this nation is developed into millions of people. And then God chooses Moses, okay? God chooses Moses, this guy to lead his people, who had a prominent position, to lead his people out of slavery and out of Egypt, which is what we see in the second book of the Bible called Exodus. And it's the exodus of the Hebrew people from Egypt. And in the midst of their exodus, we see that God, through Moses, gives his people his law. And this law is there for them to govern themselves so that they can be set apart and they can be distinct and they can be peculiar, and God gives all these commands and ordinances for them to live their life to be distinct and set apart and to look different and to show the world His glory through how they govern themselves and how they live their lives. And I think one thing that's fascinating is how so much of even our Western law in the Western world is influenced through that original law that was given to Moses thousands of years ago, and which I think is crazy and is super cool. So God just wanted His people to look different, to be set apart, and to be distinct. And ultimately what He wanted to do through His people is to bring about Jesus, is to bring about a Messiah, so that through His people, through this nation that is His own, that He birthed Himself, He would bring about redemption, that He would bring about saving the entire world, not just the Jews, first the Jews, but then everyone else, including you and including me, the Gentiles. And so what we see is that God always commanded His nation to not have a lot to do with these other nations. And He would say, hey, don't intermarry with them. Don't be influenced by what they're up to and their plurality of gods and all the wicked, despicable things that they do. Just follow me, the one true God. But we would see oftentimes kings would take different wives from different countries, and they would be influenced by that. And then they would influence all of the people. And they would kind of abandon their devotion to the one true living God. And they would kind of have this half-hearted sort of devotion to God, and things would not go well for them. And so our story today involves this woman who's from one of the worst nations. She's a Canaanite woman, and if you've read the Old Testament, you've seen a ton of despicable things about Canaanite people and the evil that they had, and how God told them, hey, stay away. So there's this huge rivalry that's happening between the Canaanite people and between the Jewish people. And it's not a couple hundred years old, it's a few thousand years old, where God had told them, hey, don't be influenced by them, stay devoted to me. See, and there was this heavy contention between the Canaanite people and between the Jewish people, and they oftentimes had these derogative kind of nicknames for each other. And in this passage, Jesus seems to use one of those. And see, to the Jews, dogs were very unclean animals, and they were not fit to be household pets. I wonder what they would think of us San Diegans. But to most of the Gentile world, specifically to this woman's world, dogs were cherished, and dogs were household animals and pets that they had. And Jewish people thought this was disgusting. So one of the nicknames that they had kind of given them was that of dogs. And Jesus, in our passage, He uses the diminutive form of this, which is kind of like a little bit more like puppies, but it still has weight and meaning. And so here I am, a white guy leading a diverse church 2,000 years later, and I'm like, yeah, I'm staying away from this passage, and because it makes me cringe, because I look at it from my own cultural lens and perspectives and the current state of affairs today, and just the racial struggle that we're still going through. And I believe that one of the important jobs as a pastor is to help bring about racial reconciliation at all costs. And I really do believe in that, and couldn't be more passionate about that. I even remember almost a year ago, just being back in our community clubhouse. I'm like pointing over, because it's like over, I'm in my house and it's like over this direction, and being back in our clubhouse for our first gathering together. And I remember just saying, guys, together we are going to build a church that reflects our community in every single way. And here we are almost a year later, and we have people from all kinds of different walks of life and backgrounds and ethnicities and military and non-military political beliefs and all of that. And it's like one of my most cherished things about Church 180. I absolutely love that God is building his church like that. And when I think about it for too long, I want to cry. I love you guys. It's incredible. But Jesus is saying this, and I'm like, man, what is he up to? Like, what does he mean? Like, what is he getting at? And I think he's giving this woman a metaphor. And he's giving her a metaphor of the order of his mission. You see, Jesus' mission is laser focused. And he's saying, my mission, it doesn't quite include you yet. Soon enough, but not yet. He's saying, I've been sent to the children of Israel. I've been sent to the nation that God birthed, that we talked about from the history. I've been sent to them first to usher in the kingdom of God, so that through them, through me, we can save the entire world. Your time hasn't come yet, ma'am. It hasn't come. And so he's letting her know that there's an order to the steps that he's taking, which brings me to the second thing that we can learn from Jesus. And I think the second lesson that we can learn from Jesus is to learn to live with a laser-focused mission. You see, I really have a heart and understand that mental health is a huge issue within our culture today at this point in time. And as a church, we want to do our best within our capacity to care for those with mental health issues. But sometimes I wonder how many unhappy people, and not all, please hear my heart in this, not all, but sometimes I wonder how many unhappy people live with a tiny vision or mission for their lives, or worse yet, a selfish one, but not a God-sized one, and not a laser-focused one like Jesus. You see, one of the things I pray for my girls every single night, or almost every night before we go to bed, is I pray that they take steps towards loving Jesus, but then I pray that they take steps towards being on an adventure and being on a mission with Jesus, that they see themselves as having a purpose, that they see themselves as having a mission, and that they catch that vision, and that it's a God-sized vision with which they devote their entire lives to. And they back it up with their time, and they back it up with their money as they live their lives. And I just want that for them so bad. I want them to learn this lesson from Jesus, to live with a laser-focused mission. And I love verse 28, because the story continues, and after Jesus says what he says about his laser-focused mission, she says, Lord. She's one of the first people to call him Lord. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table, even the puppies under the table, eat the children's crumbs. See, she's the first person to pick up what he's throwing down. I mean, if you look the last few chapters, the crowds don't get what Jesus is up to. The religious leaders don't get what Jesus is up to. His own disciples don't get what Jesus is up to. But this woman, Mark chapter 7, in a Canaanite woman in the vicinity of Tyre, who's just received this response from Jesus that we're like, she gets it. She's the first person to understand the metaphor of Jesus. She's the first person to understand what he's up to. She's the first person to understand his mission and what he has come to do. She gets the metaphor, and it's almost like she's saying, Jesus, I understand that your mission is to the Jewish people first. And I understand that you want to save the entire world, that you're going to save the entire world through the Jewish people, and you're going to establish your church, and that you are going to bring all this about. But understand that I know that you're coming for me someday, and it's supposed to be not yet, but I need my cut of what you're up to right now. Jesus, I need you to throw me a crumb right now, because right now I've got a serious thing going on with my daughter, and I know that you are my only hope, and I need what you have to offer right now. And verse 29 says this, I love it, I love this. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demons left your daughter. So she went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. And what we kind of get from from Matthew's version of this story is Jesus was amazed at her faith. He was impressed, and he was like, "Woman, you have great faith." I imagine him like kind of chastising the disciples and being like, "Guys, you need to learn to take a page from this lady's book because you guys, I'm beginning to question why I picked you at times and what you're up to." But what I need you to hear right here, and what I need you to understand from what's going on right here, is that Jesus is punctuating this backstory that we brought into, that we talked about at the very beginning. He's punctuating this. You see, remember legalism, where we talked about elevating God's law or traditions over God's law? And I can't help but think that Jesus, like at this time, is like looking at his disciples again and saying, "Guys, okay, see what I mean? See what I was talking about back there with the religious leaders? See, remember when I was talking about what makes a person clean, what makes a person unclean, and things like that? The heart of this woman, the heart, like the way that she approached me with her humility, the way that she put her hope in me, the way that she had faith. See, this heart is what makes a person clean." This is punctuating the backstory. And I imagine him saying to them, "Do you see how desperate she was for what I have to offer? Do you see how she approached me with this great humility? Do you see what I was able to do with that sort of faith? This is it. This is what makes a person clean and makes a person saved, and what makes a person stand before me and be righteous. This is it. Have a right standing before me. It's the heart. It's not the actions. It's the heart. It's not the actions. It's in the approach that we come to Jesus, that he does his best work in our life and begins to transform who we are. The third lesson that I have here in your note sheet is this, is the lessons from Jesus is we can learn to see the gospel at work. Learn to see the gospel at work. You see, the gospel is this. It's as simple as I can put it. The gospel is that we are worse off than we ever thought we were on our own. But we're more loved than we ever thought with Jesus. And we are better off than we ever thought with Jesus. We're more secured. We're more saved in Jesus. This is why at Church 180 we say turn toward hope. Because there is hope in turning toward Jesus. And turning towards the good news that we are more loved, we are more secure, and we are more saved than ever believed when we come and we approach him with the heart of this woman. It's good. I talk to so many people as a pastor who for various reasons think that they've got to just clean their life up. And they've got to go through a bunch of religious, mumbo jumbo and hoops, and they've got to follow these traditions and spin around 3 times and wag their tail or do whatever before they can actually approach Jesus and get baptized or approach Jesus and actually get serious about following him. And honestly, that's just junk. I think that's just junk that the enemy throws at us. I think what Jesus is saying here is it just takes a pure heart that comes to him in humility and says, "Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I understand that you love me. And Jesus, I understand that you want to save me. And Jesus, I understand that you want to produce the gospel work in my life and transform me and make me into something that I wouldn't even recognize after amount of time with you." And that's the truth of Jesus. That's the truth of this story. That's the truth of our Sheltered at Home series. That's the truth of this church, and that's the truth of what we're about to celebrate in communion this morning. You see, the reason why we can be made clean in Jesus, the reason why we can be saved in Jesus, the reason why we can be secure for all of eternity in Jesus and have this peace and have this profound joy that we talked about and this rest that comes from him is because of what he was able to accomplish on the cross. So we're going to move into communion. It's where we remember the cross. It's where we remember that sacrifice. We remember that's where our story begins. It's where we remember that it was the blood of Jesus that was poured out, the body of Jesus that was broken to establish the justice or to bring forth the justice for the wrongs that you and I have done, the sin that we've committed, the wickedness that lives inside of each and every one of us, the uncleanness that is a part of our lives, the fact that we're worse off than we ever thought we were without him. That's what communion's about. It's about remembering that it's through that act of putting our trust and approaching Jesus because of the body that was broken, the blood that was shed, that we can have new life, we can have hope, and we can see the gospel, the good news, the story of Jesus take off in our life in transformation. So I'm going to encourage you and invite you that if you put your faith, trust in Jesus, to join us in communion. Just get something that's food to remember the body, get something that's juice to remember the blood. And honestly, I just want to throw this out there. If you at all feel as though, man, I've been one of those people that feels like I need to clean myself up, that feels like I need to jump through these religious hoops. Tony, I didn't understand that it was all about just approaching Jesus in humility with a heart that says, Jesus, I want what you have to offer. And if that's you today, I want to encourage you to indicate that on your Connect card. Through the app. I want you to indicate that on your Connect card. Let us know. We would love to follow up with you and chat about what it means to begin your journey with Jesus. So we're going to move into a time of communion, and I'm going to pray for that now. Jesus, thank you that we have this hope, that we can have this peace, that we can have this joy, and we can have this rest in you. And so I pray, God, that you help us to learn more, to see the gospel, to see how worse off we are without you, and to see how better off we are with you because of the cross. And God, help us to live out of that. Help us to live our lives out of that. So thank you. May we celebrate and remember you in this time. Amen.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire, another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between what I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. Was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free? There is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left were dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between where it meant to me and this reckoning? Either way, I will bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, the power set me free. There is a grave that holds nobody, and the power lives to Him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between we're slim. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. And nothing stands between us. And nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. And I know I will never be alone. Be another in the fire, standing next to me. Be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, how good you've been to me? Count the joy come every battle, I know that's where you'll be. And I can see the light in the darkness. As the darkness bows to Him, I can hear the roar in the heavens. As the space between we're slim, I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us, and nothing stands between. Be another in the fire, standing next to me. Be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, how good you've been to me? I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Well, hey, a couple things before we let you guys go today. We have a courtyard experience in just a minute, so we'd love to see you in there. But also there's been a lot of talk about reopening the church this week. And the first thing I would just say is we've never closed. We've just stopped meeting physically. But know that we are having conversations about what the wise thing for Church 180 to do is as far as gathering back together physically. We're having those conversations, but the one step that we do know is this, is that next week you're gonna have the opportunity to sign up for a small group, a Church 180 small group. And so stay tuned for that next week to hear about the different options, the group leaders, and different nights for the groups that you'll have the opportunity to join. And we would love for you to take this step to do that. These groups will be virtual at first, but the hope is that we can take another step towards meeting physically in small groups. And that's what we hope for. So the last thing I want to share is this, is that next week we're starting a brand new series called Making the Most of COVID-19, and we'd love to have you join us right here online on Facebook or on YouTube. It's going to be great, and we'd love for you to share. Share the event, share the fact that we're going to have this brand new series this week as you see things unfold. Other than that, we love you guys. We hope that you have an incredible Sunday, an incredible Memorial Day weekend. And we hope to see you really soon. Miss you guys. Peace.